Good morning, Tiger fans. Hope everyone is having a good Tuesday so far, and it's hard not to as your Fighting Tigers of LSU have claimed their seventh national championship. We'll get into it. We'll get into the three-game series between the Tigers and the Gators. As you can see on the rundown, we'll also talk about Dylan Cruz winning the Golden Spikes, your Tiger players on the All-Tourney team, and then we'll get into some around town news. As you can see, we do have some empty space. My co-host or host of the show, Chet, is not here with us. He is traveling, but that doesn't mean we can't have a show. It's our 10th episode, so let's get right into it. And the National Championship Series featured the Tigers and the Gators, and this game went all three games. So let's get right into the first game. We're going to do a little bit of a play-by-play. We're going to recap how LSU got to the National Championship Series. If you want to look at that, we have our last episode where we talked about LSU's road to the finals, and now we'll talk about how they won the National Championship. So let's get right into game number one. Ty Floyd got the start, and what a start that he had. 17 strikeouts. It tied an the College World Series record for most strikeouts in a game. You got to tip your cap to him. And then also you saw Riley Cooper. He gave you 3 shutout innings. So let's get right into the scoring. So LSU got off to a hot start in this one. We saw Kay Beloso get an RBI single to put LSU up 1-0, but that was it after that. And in the third inning, we saw Gavin Dugas hit an absolute nuke to left field to give the Tigers a 2-0 lead. But the Gators were quickly able to respond as Jack Caglione got an RBI groundout to put the score 2-1. And then in the fifth inning, they got another RBI groundout, this time from Curlin, to even up the score at 2-2. And the Gators, the inning after that, BT Ripel hit a home run to right field to give them their first lead of the series, 3-2. But then the hero of this College World Series, Tommy White, we saw it in the Wake Forest game. He's one of the reasons why LSU was even in this National Championship Series. He hit another home run, this time to left field, to even up the score at 3-3. And that's when we saw Riley Cooper in this bullpen take over. We didn't see any of the offenses really step up in this one. The main story for the National Championship Series for LSU was leaving too many runners in scoring position. We saw it early on in game number 1. We saw it in game number 2. We saw it in game number 3, but that really ultimately didn't matter, which we will get into in a couple of minutes. But the one really key to this series was LSU's offense really battling against Florida's aces, both of them. Sproat in game number 1, he only went 4 innings. He had 111 pitch count. That was the tip of the cap to the LSU offense right there to get Florida's ace out early, and they had to go to the bullpen. We saw Fisher. He went 3 innings. Neely also went 3 innings, their closer. But once again, we saw a hero step up in game number 1 of this championship series. Kay Beloso, the Creole Bambino, as we like to call him, 4-3, put up the score as LSU and Riley Cooper sealed the deal as the Fighting Tigers won game number 1, 4-3, to give them their early momentum. And as we all know what happened Sunday, it wasn't pretty. It was a complete flip of what happened on Saturday night. Go to Sunday, Nate Ackenhausen was going to be the starter. He had a really good outing against Tennessee in an elimination game. He went really good, went 6 innings, pretty much had his best outing of the year. This outing, though, didn't really look too good. He just didn't have his stuff. His fastball wasn't working. His changeup was a little bit shaky at the start. At the first inning, he did have runners in scoring position. He was able to strike out the side to get out of that inning. But after that, the LSU bullpen just really unraveled in this one. And then once again, the LSU's offense was able to get Waldrop quickly out of this game. He only went 2 innings, had 83 pitches in those 2 innings. And then we saw Florida's bullpen really rise to the occasion. So let's get into the scoring in this one. LSU's offense got off to another hot start. Once again, they got the lead. Gavin Dugas hit a double to get up 1-0. And then we saw Ty Evans. He has been a beast this tournament for Florida. Once again, he hit a home run to even up the score at 1. And then we saw in the second inning, LSU, extend their lead to 2 after back-to-back base hits. And so LSU took the lead 3-1. And this is when it started to unravel in the third inning. We saw Jack Caglione get the single to go up to not really even up the score, but to limit the damage here. And after that, Josh Rivera got the single to even up the score. And then we saw Ty Evans get the home run off of Gavin Guidry. And from there, it wasn't pretty for LSU. Florida's offense got 24 runs on 23 hits, which tied the tournament record. But after that, as we all know, in the game number 3, LSU broke that record. So let's flush that one like the LSU team did. And that's exactly what they did. So let's talk about game number 3. I'm sure that's what's on everyone's mind coming off of a game last night. So this one was also some question marks as who was going to pitch. Were we going to see Paul Skeens get the ball even on 3 days rest? But in the end, we did see Thatcher Hurd. And, Jack Caglione also got the start for the Gators. And once again, LSU's offense, struggled in the first inning. Caglione looked pretty good. He got 2 strikeouts, but after that, it really unraveled. And after that, Florida's bullpen was just way too tired to really seal the deal and keep this game close. So once again, the scoring, and this time favored Florida. They got off to a hot start. Wyatt Langford, he has been a beast in this College World Series. Hit a 2-run home run, and it started to get a little uneasy. Thatcher Hurd didn't have his best stuff in that first inning, but he was able to bounce back from there. Thatcher Hurd, he ultimately went 6 innings, gave you 7 strikeouts, 90 pitches. Was a really, really good outing. Thatcher Hurd, Jay Johnson said it at the start of the season that Thatcher Hurd was going to be the key for this team to win the College World Series, and he definitely had his best stuff from, the second inning on to the last time that he stepped on the mound. So once again, we saw Riley Cooper. Cooper went 1 inning, and then we saw Gavin Guidry seal out the deal. So the scoring, let's get to that. We saw the Wyatt Langford home run, but the Tigers were not done, and they were not going to back down from this fight. They put up 6 runs in the second inning, and that 6-run rally was started by Jordan Thompson. And Jordan Thompson, I know that he had a rough game, had those 2 errors that really cost the Tigers the momentum in that one. But you got to give credit to Jordan Thompson. He stepped up at the plate, also made some really good catches. He had some line drives right into the shift, and Thompson was able to seal those. So after that 6-run inning, it was all Tigers. After that one, they put up 18 runs, 24 hits, which broke the College World Series record for most hits in the tournament, as the Tigers won 18-4 and claim their 7th national championship. So with the win, LSU has claimed their 7th national championship. It's the first time that this LSU program has won it all since 2009. If you're an LSU fan, that feels like a very long time. The last time that LSU was even in the College World Series finals was in 2017 against these same Florida Gators. As we all know, Florida swept the Tigers back in 2017. But this time, this team got some revenge, got some demons out of their system. As we said, the offense, they could have just, we talked about it all, the 2 games between all 3 of our hosts. LSU had some troubles with runners in scorer position. They had multiple opportunities to blow the game open in game number 1. They also had some opportunities to blow it open in game number 2. In the first 3 innings, they had bases loaded. And, inning 1, inning 2, inning 3, but just couldn't get that big base hit. And then we saw in game number 3, this LSU offense really rose to the occasion after Wyatt Langford hit that 2-run home run. Jordan Thompson got the inning started with a single. They put the Tigers on the board, and then after that, they were able to get a 6-2 lead. And that was definitely reassuring to get a big lead like that, especially with Thatcher Hurd. After that, he was able to settle in. You saw how nasty his slider was. His curveball was his 3 pitches were on his fastball, curveball, and slider. He was able to put up zeros, and that's what you definitely needed. And your offense just kept on producing. Josh Pearson had that 2-run bomb. Dylan Cruz, if you want to go out like that, that is definitely the way to go out. I thought that his last at bat was going to be the triple, but his last at bat ended up being the single. Your whole entire lineup had a hit. This was just what you wanted. We saw the women's basketball team put up 102. The LSU baseball, they put up 18. This is exactly how you won the national championship, especially in game number 3. It's a marble game. It's no tomorrow. It was pretty much win, and you win it all. So, and that's exactly what this LSU team was able to do. And so the national championship celebration is going to be on Wednesday night. I'm sure that Alex Box is going to be bumping on Wednesday night. So there's going to be a lot of partying in the offseason. This team definitely deserves it. We saw all the preseason expectations. Jay Johnson knew it. These players knew it. Their goal ultimately was to win the national championship, and they were able to do that. Preseason number one with all the expectations. They had that little rut in the season in the Auburn series and the Mississippi State series. And after that, we were wondering, after Paul Skeens, it's pretty much a toss-up who's going to do that. But as you saw in the regional, the super regional in Omaha, Paul Skeens, he's going to be Paul Skeens. He's going to deliver every time that he's going to be on the mound. But we saw Ty Floyd, what he did. Game number one against Florida, that is probably one of the best performances I have ever seen on the mound in an LSU uniform. And then we saw guys like Thatcher Hurd. He really stepped up in the postseason. It started in the Oregon State regional, even giving up those multiple home runs to the Beavers. He was able to get the job done, 12 strikeouts. And from there, this LSU bullpen was one of the best bullpens in this College World Series. Just look at the route that LSU had to go to. In the first game, you had to go up against Tennessee, and you were able to seal the deal. And then you go to a 1-0 game against Wake Forest. You lose by 1 run. You're feeling a little bit down on yourselves, but then you have another day. You have to face Tennessee in an elimination game. And once again, Nate Ackenhausen steps up. It's like everybody steps up in this bullpen. I don't really care about the 24-4 game. That was pretty much, after we saw Bryce Collins step into the bullpen, it was pretty much save your best arms for this. And that plan ultimately worked. We saw Thatcher Hurd. He gave you 6 innings. Riley Cooper, he only had to give you 1. And then Gavin Guidry got 2 home runs. I know he gave up the 2 home runs, but ultimately he sealed the deal, got the last strikeout, and that's ultimately what matters in this one. So you got to give your tip of the cap to this LSU pitching staff. We thought that they were dead in the water, and what was going to be one of the negatives of what's not going to, this LSU bullpen, we were thinking back in April, back in even May, the start of the May, especially – start of the SEC tournament. Is this LSU bullpen and this LSU pitching staff after Paul Skeens good enough to win it all and get to Omaha? And our answers were answered last night. This LSU bullpen was, quite honestly, we want to talk about the offense. We could talk about them. They had their struggles, but, they go into game 3, a game that you needed to win to, etch your names in the history of LSU baseball, and they did that. So LSU's bullpen has to be remembered for this run. So let's get into our players now, our player awards. Let's start with the Golden Spikes Award winner, and let's see who ultimately took the award on Saturday afternoon. So as I mentioned, the Golden Spikes Award show was just a 30-minute show. It was the guys on Baseball Tonight. It was 30 minutes before game number 2 kicked off between the Gators and the Tigers. Your 3 finalists were Jack Caglione from Florida. Caglione, you got to tip your cap. I know that he didn't have his best stuff in game number 3, but that was one of the best seasons that I ever seen. Caglione had over 30. I think that he had 33 home runs. I know that he had 2 home runs in game number 2 to put that mark up to 33 home runs, and then batting over 300. He had 7 wins on the season, a 3 ERA. So that is a pretty damn good season, if I had to ask me. But the other finalists were 2 of your LSU Tigers. We saw Dylan Cruz. Cruz, he's going to go down as one of the best players in LSU baseball history. I know that there's a lot of names that we love to talk about. Warren Morris with his clutch home run, Eddie Furness, Todd Walker, Ben McDonald. The list could go on and on. Alex Bregman, in the modern era of this program. But Dylan Cruz had, going from freshman season all the way to now, the discipline has just been off the charts, and he's just one of the most consistent players that I have ever seen. I feel like every season he's hit over 300, and this season he got even close to breaking the Rafe Rhymes record of 431. He started out the season batting over 500, which was just insane. And the other finalist was none other than Paul Skeens. And Skeens had one of the best pitching seasons that I've ever seen. I just feel like this LSU team just had a lot of talent sprinkled over, whether that's in the pitching staff or through their 1 through 9 lineup in their batting order. Paul Skeens, he broke Ben McDonald's SEC record, and that won't even be touched. That record took 34 years to be broken in Paul Skeens. You're just not going to see somebody else like that. I mean, it's going to be tough to replace him going into next year. I know that we don't want to talk about next year. Let's focus on the now. But I mean, Paul Skeens, that was one of the best transfer portal signings ever. I mean, if you want to draw some comparisons of how Joe Burrow did, signing him in the transfer portal, of how much that meant to them. I know, in 2018 season, Burrow didn't have his best season, but 2019, that's what we'll all remember. And it's very similar to what the Paul Skeens did this season. Absolutely shoved the whole way. I know that he wanted the ball in game number 3, but it got out of hand, didn't really need him, and he was able to get on the dog pile. But on Saturday afternoon, we did learn the Golden Spikes Award winner, and it was none other than Dylan Crews. I know a couple of weeks ago that Chet and I talked about the Golden Spikes Award finalists and who that we wanted to pick, and our minds were thinking that Dylan Crews was going to win this one. Our hearts were also thinking of Dylan Crews. This is just a deserving player. I can't think of a more deserving player other than Dylan Crews. I mean, retire number 3 at this point. If you want to put a statue, go ahead. I don't care. Dylan Crews is the best player ever to put on the LSU. And, position player for sure. Pitcher, that could either be a debate between Paul Skeens and Bing McDonald. But congratulations to Dylan Crews, winning the Golden Spikes Award winner. And that wasn't the only award that this LSU team took. It was a lot of trophies handing out this weekend. So let's get into the next one. The LSU players on the all-tournament team. This was shortly announced on the video board at Charles Schwab Field. So let's get into it. We'll also get into some of the other players as well. Let's congratulate them on a phenomenal season. But the improved and most outstanding player was Paul Skeens. It was either going to be Paul Skeens. You could have gave it to Kate Beloso. You could have gave it to Trey Morgan for his defense, for his battle at the plate, and then you could also give it to Tommy White. I mean, the list could go on and on who's going to get it, but ultimately Paul Skeens did the job. Absolute shoved against Tennessee in game number 1. And then when you needed him the most against Brett Lauder, it was a 0-0 game, and then the offense was able to step up. Tommy White delivering the 2-run bomb to get you to the championship series. Paul Skeens, tip my cap to you, young fella. Paul Skeens, most outstanding player of the tournament, and that is definitely, without no question, he definitely deserves it. So let's get into the other LSU Tigers that were all on the tournament team. First baseman Trey Morgan. I mean, this guy is just Mr. Consistent. I draw some comparisons. He just reminds me so well of Antoine Duplantis. I mean, this guy just gets on base. He is just professional at-bats after professional at-bats, and he has some sneaky power. He had 11 home runs this season. And what a season it was for Trey Morgan. Probably going to be his last, like many of these other guys, but what a way to go out. So we saw Trey Morgan be on the all-tournament team. Gavin Dugas, the second baseman. Dugas has been that fifth-year senior, and he has just stuck it out to the end. He had that LASIK surgery to help his eyes out, and, he was almost legally blind if he didn't ultimately go through that surgery. So what a story it was. Just a more deserving player from home in Louisiana. All these guys, Trey Morgan went to Brother Martin. He's from New Orleans. So it just means more to these guys, especially to these guys that are from the state of Louisiana, and how much it means to bring this national championship back to Baton Rouge. The next one is Tommy White, third baseman from LSU. No surprise here. It just missed a clutch throughout this whole entire tournament. Tommy tanks. Outside of Paul Skeens, this was also a really hit for Jay Johnson to get to the transfer portal. I just want to talk about that too. I mean, just talk about the guys you got from the transfer portal. I know that you got Christian Little. You got guys like Thatcher Hurd, who ultimately shoved in game number 3. Paul Skeens, we know what he did. And then Tommy White to complete the pieces of the puzzle to get you to where you did. The next player is Dylan Crews. We already talked about him. There's really nothing else to be said. He is the GOAT of LSU baseball. And then we saw Kay Beloso, DH of LSU, also a John Curtis product from New Orleans. So Kay Beloso, what all the stories that he's meant, his freshman season in 2019, he looked really good, had a really phenomenal freshman season. And then his next 2 seasons, he really struggled at the plate, just couldn't really find it. And then we saw the transition from Paul Maneri to Jay Johnson. Kay Beloso was going to be the starting first baseman or DH in opening day. And then he tore his ACL last season. So he missed out on all last season. And then you go into this season, he didn't even start in the first couple of games because of the Tommy White injury. But after that, Cade Beloso got out to a blazing start. He was hitting over 400 to start the season. So, I mean, Beloso was just Mr. Clutch throughout this whole entire tournament. Whenever you needed a base hit, he delivered, especially, in the Wake Forest game number 1, when he had that 3-run home run to put the Tigers up 5-2. And then we saw in game number 1 of the National Championship Series against Florida to put up them 4-3 and really seal the deal. If you didn't win that game number 1, I just don't think that this LSU team was going to win it all, especially after what we saw on Sunday. So getting game number 1 was definitely crucial in that play. Against Wake Forest, and especially against Florida in game number 1, was definitely crucial for this team of hoisting the championship trophy. And then we saw Ty Floyd be on the all-tournament team to close out the Tigers on this list. And Ty Floyd, what a tournament it was. I know he started out struggling in the regional against Oregon State. It was a rained-out game. He only went 3 innings in that one. It was a very short start. But after that, in the Kentucky game, he really struggled a little bit early, gave up those home runs, but after that, he really bounced back against Kentucky. And then we saw him against Wake Forest in the loss. I know, we all want to look at the loss, but Ty Floyd was really good in that game 1 against Wake Forest. And then we saw him once again in the National Championship Series. 17 strikeouts. There's just really nothing else to be said about Ty Floyd. So let's wrap up the LSU baseball season with Around Town News. Got some big news dropped today as we saw Tennessee's relief pitcher / starting pitcher. I know that he started out the season starting pitcher, and then Tony Vitello moved him out of this. But you're starting to wonder why are you bringing up a Tennessee pitcher? Well, LSU has a lot of early smoke on Chase Burns. You're ultimately probably going to be losing Ty Floyd and also Paul Skeens. So Thatcher Hurd is looking to be your Friday night guy going into the 2024 season. Chase Burns, one of his big reasons is why he went into the transfer portal is that he wants to be a starting pitcher. He definitely has the arm talent. I mean, this kid could throw 102. He throws straight gas. He was moved into the bullpen role in the midway throughout the season, like I mentioned, and he just became one of Tennessee's most impactful players. So he concluded the 2023 season with a 5-3 record, 2 saves, 114 strikeouts, and a 4.25 ERA over 72 pitches. He was a really big part of Tennessee's win over Southern Miss to get the Volunteers back to Omaha. So I think that this would be a really big get. Outside of Thatcher Hurd, you don't really have much coming back in the starting pitcher-wise. Maybe you see guys like, if Raleigh Cooper comes back, maybe not. So I definitely think that Jay Johnson, once again, is going to be looking at the transfer portal because there's going to be a lot of turnover from this national championship team to the 2024 team. But like I said, I think that this would definitely be a big get. So some early smoke on LSU. We'll definitely keep an eye on that and see if the Tigers can land another big get. We saw them land Alabama's pitcher, Xavier's pitcher as well. So already we're seeing a couple of key pieces, especially on the pitching staff. What you're losing is definitely what you're gaining, but it's definitely going to be hard to replace a guy like Paul Skeens. You're just never, ever going to get a guy like him to probably step on LSU's campus for a very long time. So that's going to do it for us on Bayou Bengal Bites, episode number 10. Hope you enjoyed it. I hope everyone enjoys the rest of your week. And for now, it's a Go Tigers, and we will see you on next week's episode